Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Melissa Rich. You are listening to Taking Care of Your Temple podcast. And this is episode 39, the second part of suicide prevention. Not a really happy, fun topic, but I think one that is very timely and that we all need to really increase our awareness on. And just be ready, because you just never know when somebody around you is going to be feeling pretty desperate. So my introductory stuff that I always say at the start of the podcast, the object of this podcast is to help women connect with God regularly and to use his grace, power, love, might, strength, goodness, all the things to improve their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. There are 4 principles that we can use to do this. The first one is to keep our focus on God. And I always say this is so basic, right? I mean, it's just obvious. Well, yeah, duh, of course we need to do that. It can be very hard to do. We are so easily distracted, all of us. I know I am. And so it's usually a continual process of pulling ourselves back, putting our focus back on God, moving forward. So don't feel bad if you struggle with this one, because I think we all do. I certainly do. Next, acknowledging that we are not enough on our own. We are not smart enough, strong enough, rich enough, nice enough, whatever enough to get through without God's help. And the good news is he is happy to help us once we ask him for it. He's not going to force us to accept his help, but if we ask, he will provide it. Then the third thing is remembering it is about progress, not perfection. Y'all, I think so many of us spend our times, a lot of our times, beating ourselves up because we're just not doing things perfectly. Well, that is just not ever going to happen. I don't know how to break it to you, but if you're waiting for things to be perfect until you start doing whatever it is, you're going to wait a very long time. So it's about progress, not perfection. And the fourth thing is to work on consciously changing our thoughts. Our thoughts are hugely, hugely important because they determine how we think, feel, act, what we believe, what we do, who we hang out with, everything. So if you are giving yourself a lot of negative, toxic thoughts, you need to become aware of that and you need to change them. And one of the ways, by the way, to do that is to just get God's word into your life. Listen to praise and worship music. Those are 2 really, really good ones. The verse for this podcast is 1 Corinthians 3:16. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? I mean, that is the perfect verse for what I'm trying to do here. All right, let me say a quick prayer to get us started. Lord, I thank you so much for allowing me to do this, and I just ask your blessings on the people who are listening. I pray that this topic will be timely and it will be helpful and that it will make a difference. Thank you for loving us as imperfect as we are. Amen. Okay, so I want to start off with some definitions. Then I did do part 1 of this podcast last week, but I'm going to review a little bit of that, not all of it, but just to kind of give you a taste of it. Really, you should go back and listen to part 1. However, I'm aware that a lot of times we have good intentions. We don't do it. So if you're starting on this one, I at least want you to have some idea of what's going on. All right. Suicide is defined as death caused by self-directed, injurious behavior with the intent to die as a result of the behavior. I mean, I think we all know what suicide is, but it doesn't hurt to define it. A suicide attempt is a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially injurious behavior with the intent to die as a result of the behavior. And a suicide attempt usually does not result in suicide, but it may result in some type of injury to the person. Like if they try to kill themselves with a gunshot, they may not have killed themselves, but they may have done a significant amount of injury to themselves. And then suicidal ideation, that refers to thinking about, considering, or planning suicide. So they're just some terms that get, used a lot that you might want to be aware of. Okay. Some of these statistics I gave last week, I'm going to give again, and then I have some new ones. Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the U.S. in 2021. And by the way, I don't know the statistics that I found, the most recent ones, although this is August 2023 when I'm recording this, the most recent ones I could find were 2021. And I really wonder if they did this after COVID had been going for a while, because I know COVID changed some things, or at the beginning of the year before we really felt the effects. Not sure. But anyway, in 2021, 48,183 Americans died by suicide. And I want to say this is that they know of. I know there were ones that they didn't realize were suicide. That happens a lot. 2021, 12.3 million adults thought seriously about suicide. They had suicidal ideation. 3.5 million adults made a plan, and 1.7 million made suicide attempts. That's a lot. On average, there were 132 suicides per day, which results to one death by suicide every 11 minutes. Y'all, that is a staggering statistic. And this is just the US. We are not the only country that has this, but I'm just getting statistics for the US. In 2020, firearms were the most common method used in suicide deaths in the US. They accounted for about half of all deaths by suicide. Among adults across all age groups, the prevalence of serious suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, was highest among young adults aged 18 to 25. And that was 13% of them are really having very strong suicidal ideation. It's kind of a scary statistic. Okay, just to kind of give you a picture of where things are. Now, let me review some from last week. So, suicide prevention for adults includes some strategies and resources aimed at helping individuals who may be struggling with suicidal thoughts or feelings. So here are some things if you know of somebody who's struggling, or if you have been there or are there yourself. The first is talk to somebody. People who are suicidal tend to pull back. You need to talk to somebody, get some help. And the best help is going to be professional help, a counselor, a therapist. And there may not be one in your area who's qualified. Get online. There is now, since COVID, that is one of the good things that came out of COVID. There is a lot of help available online, and some of it is very, very good. So there's no excuse. Check it out and find something. Remove access to means. So if you find out that someone you know is thinking about killing themselves by shooting themselves, if they have guns or bullets, take them away. Just tell them, I'm going to keep these for you. I'll give them back when you're better, but don't leave them there with them. That's really not a good idea. Help them to stay connected. Again, people who are suicidal, their tendency is to want to isolate. They pull back from everybody. Help them stay connected. And then educate yourself. Find out what are things that you can do. And actually, listening to this podcast, and especially last week's podcast as well, is one way of doing that. And a big, huge one, y'all, is to be non-judgmental. Okay, I'll get it. Non-judgmental and empathic. Don't jump to conclusions. You have no idea what somebody else is going through. You have no clue why they may be thinking about this or tried it. So, don't be pointing fingers and casting blame. That's just really not helpful at all. And a lot of times when we get the whole story, then we're like, oh, okay. This is really, honestly, I've always said one of my strong points. I am very non-judgmental because I always have I have a good imagination. And in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, man, if I were in their shoes, I could see me trying the same thing. I'm very good at putting myself in someone else's situation. And when you do that, it's really hard to cast stones. And one of the things that used to be said when I was growing up, and I have no idea who first said it, so I can't credit it, but it's true. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that's just something that we need to bear in mind, especially true for a lot of teenagers and young people. They don't have the perspective that it's going to get better. Yeah, this really sucks right now because my girlfriend or boyfriend broke up with me and I feel horrible. But you know what? It happened a couple of times before and I got through it. They don't have that perspective. They are very, very present oriented. So, yeah. Okay, so we need to be able to recognize warning signs. And here are some typical ones. Verbal cues. I mentioned last time when I was growing up, one of the things that was very common, bits of wisdom, people who talk about suicide don't try it. Not true. That was a bit of wisdom that was false. People who talk about it will attempt it. They are hoping to be talked out of it. Because here's the thing. A lot of people who commit suicide, they don't want to die. They just don't want to feel all this pain. They want to stop hurting. And that's the only way that they can think of to feel better. That's not a good way, but that's what they think of. So if they are talking about, I really don't want to be here, I wish I were dead, and sometimes they will just say that, pay attention and do something. If they start withdrawing or isolating, that's a sign. Mood swings up and down and in and out, especially if these are not common. The mood swings are not common for them. Loss of interest in usual activities. If they used to be a huge sports person and they were always going to, I don't know, football games or baseball games or track meets or whatever, and now suddenly they stopped and you asked them about it and they just don't want to go, that can be a sign of suicide. Giving away possessions. This, especially for a lot of teens, is the way of making a will. They're getting rid of things. And then another one that can be tricky, if they've had these and other symptoms that I talk about in the first week, if they've had these symptoms ongoing for several weeks to several months, and then suddenly they're better, and we think, oh, good, they're okay now. They may be, but it also may be that they are feeling better, they're feeling at peace because they've decided to do it. They've made the decision. This weekend, I'm going to go ahead and jump off the building or do whatever. So don't assume if they've been dropping all these hints and suddenly they've stopped that everything is okay. And I am going to talk, I mentioned in the first one, what I call the Dr. Rich's plan on what to do if you think someone is suicidal. I'm going to go through that again at the end of this one because I think it really is important to know what to do. Most people have no idea what to do and then they panic and don't do anything. So I'm going to talk about that again. Okay, some risk factors for suicide. One is if they have a mental health condition. If they've been suffering from anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever, bipolar, they can be more at risk. They're at a higher risk for suicide. If they've had chronic pain or illness. Now, my heart goes out to these people. I've hurt or been sick for like a day or two at a time. I do not like it. And I cannot imagine what it must be like to feel that way for weeks or months or years. So it makes sense if someone is dealing with that, they're going to be at a higher risk for committing suicide. Now, not all of them, but it can be. So it's something to be aware of. A big one is previous suicide attempts. They tried it in the past, didn't make it, and they may very well try it again. So just be aware. If they are using any kind of substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, even sometimes if they're heavily into pornography or gambling, they can get to the point where they just feel so disgusted with themselves that they can go ahead and try to commit suicide. Another big one is if they are dealing with a loss or if they're grieving, if somebody that they loved has recently passed away. And this is one that gets a lot of Christians. Their loved one is now in heaven. Their spouse that they've been with for 35 years, they're gone. They want to join them. And y'all, I get that. I totally do. But we do not get to punch our ticket early to go to heaven. God makes that decision. We do not. So understandable, but not valid. But it is something to be aware of. So some coping strategies for you if you are in this position or someone you love. Get some physical activity. Exercise is like the best thing that you can do, one of the best. Another one is go outside. So not only exercise, but exercise outside. Go for a bike ride, walk, go for a run. If you are fortunate enough to live near water, one is I envy you, but two, take them out to walk on the beach or the lake or whatever it is, or in the mountains. Get outside. Very, very helpful. Another one is help them with some creative expression. If they can do some crafting, write some music, play some music, I don't know, gardening, cake decorating, whatever, something creative that really is helpful. Research backs that up. Positive self-talk. People who are suicidal are giving themselves a lot of negative, toxic messages. So help them to start changing those. Point out, and you'll hear it because they will say, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. Start calling them on it. Don't say that. You're not stupid. You really are smart. I mean, you aced the math class or whatever. challenge them on those things and start pointing out that those things are not true. Social support, again, they need to connect with other people. So don't give up on inviting them to things. Or even just say, I'm going to come by and get you, and we'll go to the family dinner together. Help them to pull out of themselves. And one that I use for like every client I have who is anxious or depressed is what I call laughter or humor therapy. I will tell clients, I want you to get on YouTube about 15 minutes a day, watch some funny videos. I like things like funny animals or wedding bloopers. I know my sons love sports bloopers. Whatever tickles your funny bone, get on there and watch it. Now, you may get an all-out belly laugh. It may just make you smile or chuckle. That's fine. The thing is, people who are suicidal have so many dark, heavy thoughts going on. They need some humor to help lighten things up. So I'm serious. Do it every day. It really will be helpful. Okay, so that's a review from last week. Now I'm going to start on some new materials. One of the things that can be really helpful for people who are considering suicide, or if they've attempted it in the past, is to build resilience. So resilience, I looked up the definition, is the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. It is toughness. And I view it as mental and emotional toughness. And it also is, and this doesn't, well, it does kind of apply, the ability of a substance or object or a person to spring back into shape. So it's elasticity or flexibility. Resilience is something that you may feel like you don't have a lot of, but you can develop it. You just have to work on it. It's a skill like any other. You can develop it. So go online, how to develop resilience, and start doing some of the things that it says. So here are some ways actually that you can do that. One is emotional regulation. Learning to recognize and manage emotions in a healthy way without suppressing or avoiding them. This is really crucial for resilience. And a lot of times people who especially are grieving, they're trying to avoid it. They don't want to deal with it. And I've had, especially back when I was doing counseling, I would have clients a lot say, I wish I could just go to sleep and wake up when this is over. And I'd say, yeah, but it doesn't work that way. Even if you slept for a year, provided you could, and then you woke up, you still would be right back where you are now emotionally because you haven't dealt with it. So we have to go through some of these things. It's the only way to get through it. It's like it's this tunnel from where we are now to where we want to be. And in order to get to where we want to be, we have to go through that tunnel. It's not fun. It may not be quick or easy, but it is necessary. So you can help them with that. Another thing that helps with resilience is to develop a positive mindset. And this is something else that if you don't have it, you can get it. You may not be the eternal optimist, but you can become more positive than you are now. This helps individuals see challenges as opportunities for growth. Y'all, I am dyed-in-the-wool optimist. That is just who I am. For me, the glass is always half full. And it's really interesting. I've noticed that my son, who lives here in Waco, has started saying something that I say a lot. He'll be saying, well, this didn't work out as well as I wanted, blah, blah, blah. But the good news is, and that is something I say all the time, but the good news is that there's always some good news. We just have to look for it and acknowledge it. So developing a positive mindset is really, really helpful. Another one is self-compassion. People who are suicidal are living in a dark, heavy place, and they are not cutting themselves much slack at all. They blame themselves for everything. They feel like they are stupid, like they are not capable. So being compassionate and forgiving of yourself is very important as well. Maintaining and building social supportive connections, relationships with family, with friends, with community, can really give you a network that helps you get through these problem times. And y'all, this is my default attitude. When I am in a bad situation, You know what I pretty much immediately do? I text or email friends and family. And I say, hey, this is what's going on. Would you pray for me? I do. I have no pride. I don't care if people know that I'm struggling with this. I mean, we all struggle with something. I want help. I want to know that my support system is praying for me. I need that. So that is something that I encourage you all to do as well. Another thing that helps develop resilience is to work on your problem solving skills. A lot of people, when they get into a situation, they just get overwhelmed and they don't know what to do and they give up. There's always something you can do. I promise there is always something you can do to make it at least a little bit better. It may not solve everything, but when you can tackle at least a little piece of it and see some progress and see some change, it's empowering. And then you feel like you can do a little bit more. So developing problem solving skills, that's a great skill to teach our children and to teach ourselves. And it is never too late to improve those skills. So work on those. Being flexible and adaptable. Being open to change and able to adapt to new circumstances helps us cope with unexpected challenges. I've said, I think I said before, maybe not, maybe this is the first time, but recently, a couple of weeks ago, we lost my dog Bugs, we knew it was coming. He was getting up there. We didn't know how old he was because he was a stray. He was at least like 12 or 13, probably older. Anyway, he passed away. We knew that we were going to have to get a companion dog because my other dog, Chewy, who is I think they told me he was a silky hair terrier, something like that. Anyway, cute little dog. He's a very sociable little dog. He needs a pat. He needs a friend. So we knew we were going to have to do that. So went looking, found Farley at Save a Tiny Adoptable in Lorena, Texas, because I wanted a small dog. And he's great. However, I've had 3 dogs that I adopted since my husband had passed away like 11 or 12 years ago. The first 3 were all very alike in temperament, very alike in training them where they were. Farley is totally different. I have had to adapt a lot. He has had to adapt to me. He was a shelter dog. He was a little over a year old when I got him. I've only had him like a week and a half. And like I said, he's lived all his life in a shelter. He's never lived in a home. And he is getting better, but he is very timid, fearful. And my other dogs were just jump in, start playing. Let's go for walks. Let's go out in the backyard and do things. Not Farley. It has been a learning curve for me. And we both had to adapt towards each other. But that's what life is. And if I expected him to be like all my other dogs and was very frustrated because he wasn't, I wouldn't have a cute little dog. So being flexible and adaptable is important. Another thing for resilience is to seek help. I talked about that. Don't be too proud to ask for help. You can't do everything by yourself. That's why you have the support system. Let them support you. And men especially, I think, are worse about that. Women, we are just like, I have no pride. I'll ask for help. But men a lot of times have a real stumbling block with this one. They don't want anybody to know because this is a big one for men. They view looking for help as a sign of weakness. Y'all, that is so wrong. It is a sign of wisdom and strength to know that you can't do it by yourself. God never intended you to do it all by yourself. That's why he gave us friends and family and him. So, yeah, ask for help. Another one is taking care of your physical health. Again, when we get in these bad situations, a lot of times we're not eating right, we're not sleeping, we stop exercising. And those are the things we need to be doing. So take care of yourself physically. And then the last one is really working on your coping skills. Like a lot of the things I just mentioned, maybe some deep breathing, humor, hobbies, exercise, prayer, all of those things can be coping skills that you need to do on a regular basis. Because let me just say, and I get this a lot, if you do something once or twice and expect it to change everything, yeah, not going to happen. A lot of these things you are going to need to do every day, sometimes several times a day. You're going to need to use humor. You're going to need to exercise. You're going to need to pray. Doing it once a month, not going to do that much. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. So be aware this is an ongoing process. Okay. Another aspect that can be really important in dealing with suicide or attempted suicide is survivor support. Now, what I'm talking about here is not people surviving a suicide attempt, although it could be them. I'm talking about the family and friends that they leave behind. And this can be tough because a lot of times they are feeling guilty. They're doing a lot of what ifing. They're beating themselves up. So they need help and support. Okay. First thing is grief counseling. I mentioned this before. There is just about everything available online if you can't find it in person near you. So take advantage of it. Just do an online search for grief counseling and you will find somebody online. Take them up on it. Another one is support group. Honestly, I think support groups are really even better for this type of situation than one-on-one counseling because you tend to get as much, if not more, from the other members of the group than you do from the group leader. The other members have been there. They have come through it. They have strategies they're happy to share with you. So if you can find a group, even an online group, do it. That can be very helpful. Another, and I really like this one, if they've lost someone, help them to establish a memorial event or a ritual, because that's a way of remembering, of honoring the person. And this can be something like a candlelight vigil or remembrance ceremonies, maybe a walk in their honor, whatever it is. Those type of things can be very helpful for the survivors. And I've seen some where people will write a prayer and everybody ties them to a balloon and the balloons go up, just something like that. That is a way of acknowledging that this person was here, they were loved, excuse me, they mattered. Okay, follow-up care. This is, again, making sure that the people who survived the loss, the family and friends, that they're getting the care that they need. Because here's what usually happens. A few days after the death, people are all over the place. They're bringing food, they're helping out, they're doing stuff. What about in the weeks or months or years after? Don't be afraid to ask people how they're doing. And one of the things people don't do, they feel uncomfortable talking about the person who's gone. And I've had people say, I can't talk about him or her because people get uncomfortable. One of the best things you can do is listen and just say, tell me about so-and-so. How did you all meet? Or what was their favorite thing to do? And just listen. Let them talk. That can be hugely, hugely healing. And you don't have to fix anything. You just listen. Let's see. Okay. Practical support. This is a really big one. Offering practical assistance, maybe things like helping with the funeral arrangements or seeing if there's any financial concerns that you can help with. I think I've shared this story on past episode of the podcast, although I'm on number 40 now, so I don't remember what I did in each one. But I had a friend who, her husband passed away, and they had 3 little boys. Well, they were little, like middle school was the oldest. And her husband's best friend, I'm going to call him Dick, I have no idea what his name was. He didn't ask, but he just started coming over every week to mow their lawn because this was a young mother with 3 kids. She didn't know how to do it. The boys were too young. So for a full year, like every Saturday morning, he was there mowing their lawn. Didn't ask, just did it. And then the other thing that I thought was going above and beyond, he started teaching the oldest son, who was like I said, middle school. He taught him how to do it. So by the time the year was over, the middle son knew how to do it. And now the youngest son was the oldest son knew how to do it. And I'll get it. And the middle son was starting to do it as well. That is a way to provide practical support that can be really needed. Peer support. A lot of times connecting the family and friends of someone who committed suicide with other survivors can be really helpful because, again, they know the stories. They know what it's like. They get it. A big one that doesn't get talked about a lot, sometimes there is a stigma attached to people who have committed suicide, and it extends to the family. So again, people won't talk about it, and they're kind of shunned. So giving them an opportunity to talk about what it was like, what happened, And to be understanding and supportive can really be very helpful. And a big one is recognizing that people grieve differently. I will always remember a client of mine who her mother passed away, and she came into a counseling session 2 or 3 weeks after her mother was gone, really not that long. And she was livid because my client's sister had gone in and got up all her mother's stuff and given it away, cleared it out. And my client was nowhere near ready for that to happen. But that was how her sister dealt with it. Let's clear it off. Let's clear the deck. Let's move on. My client wasn't there. So be careful of that. Don't force people into doing things that they are not ready to do. Ask first, would you like me to help you go through their closet and clear things out? If they say yes, great. If they say no, leave it alone. Don't force them. Now, having said that, if it's been 10 years, and yes, I have none of that to happen, you may need to do with other family and friends some type of intervention, because that really is too long. But if it's only been a couple of weeks, even a couple of months, just let it go. Okay. So supporting survivors of suicide requires a compassionate and sensitive approach. It means recognizing that grief is complex and unique, and it requires providing resources and services to help them heal and get better. Okay, so now I've come back to what I said before, my Dr. Rich's formula for determining if someone you know or love is suicidal. Here's what you do. Let's say that you are around somebody and they've been kind of throwing out some verbal things that, you're not sure. You're kind of trying to ignore them or laugh at them. And then they kind of laughed with you and you think, oh, okay, they were just kidding. But they're doing it fairly consistently. They're saying things like, man, I just wish I wasn't here anymore. I sure would like to check out, or whatever. Call them on it. Don't assume. Ask them directly. So if you think they might be considering ending their life, do not mess around. Just say, so Joe, you are talking a lot about checking out lately. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Ask. Be direct. Do not mess around. Second thing, if they say no, and they may say, what, are you kidding? Of course not. Great. Tell them, oh man, I'm so glad to hear that. I misunderstood. Okay? I misinterpreted. You are the concerned family member or friend. That's fine. That's better than wishing that you had said something. So if they say yes, however, here are the things that you need to do. First of all, find out, do they have a plan? Well, if you were to commit suicide, do you know how you want to do it? A lot of times they will say, no, I don't know what I would do. I'm just overwhelmed now. I just really don't want to be here, but no, I have no idea. Great. You can stop there. However, I say stop there as in you don't need to ask them any more questions, but you still need to provide support, love, encouragement, because they're having a tough time. If they say yes, they do have a plan, you need to find out what it is. Okay, you've got a plan. What do you think that you would do? And listen to what they say. And it's going to probably be something like, well, I would get a gun and just shoot myself, or I'd drive my car into a tree, or I would jump off the building that I live in. Find out what the plan is, because the next thing that you need to do is figure out, do they have the means to carry out the plan? So if they say they want to kill themselves and they say that they're going to use a gun, ask them, okay, you say that you might want to blow your brains out. Do you have a gun? A lot of times they're going to say no. If they say yes, keep going. Do you have any bullets? Do you know how to load and fire the gun? I mean, find out all of that. If they say yes to all of that, they have the means, they know how to do it, then this is the big one. Do you intend to carry out your plan? You have a plan, you have the means. Are you going to do it? And thank you, Lord, most of them stop here. Most people at this point will say, no, I couldn't do it. I mean, at times I really want to. I know that I've got the gun, or I live on this 30-story building, or whatever. but I couldn't do that to my family. That's the answer that most often you will get. Thank goodness. So again, you can stop there, but you need to make sure that they get some help. If they say, yeah, I am going to do it. In fact, I'm thinking this weekend or whatever, you have to intervene. Now, this is one where a lot of teens don't know what to do because their friend, if they're telling them all this, usually will first say, but you have to promise not to tell anyone. And they'll say, okay, y'all, if you have promised that and they are suicidal, you are released from that promise. I am giving you permission to tell people. You need to tell their family. You may need to report it to the authorities. In some states, look it up, you have to tell. If somebody you know is suicidal, you have to report it to the authorities. And I can't tell you because there's so many different places. You're just going to have to look it up. But if I don't care what you have promised them, if they are suicidal, you need to take action. So, and then a lot of people are afraid to do that because, well, they're going to be mad at me. Yeah, they probably will in the beginning, and that's okay. They'll be alive while they're mad at you. And usually they will forgive you if they're mad initially. A lot of times they're not mad because, again, most people don't want to be dead. They just want to stop hurting, and they think dying is the only way to do it, which is not true. So most of the time, they do appreciate you taking action. But if they don't, if they are mad at you, you know what? I can live with them being mad at me a lot more than I can live with the fact that because I did nothing, they went ahead and carried out their plan. So again, it's the lesser of several evils. So let their friends and family know. Maybe let people in their church. You don't have to take out an ad in the newspaper. I'm not saying that. But other people need to be aware so that they can also take appropriate action. You do not want it to all be on you. All right. Let's look at what the Bible says about suicide. The term suicide is not mentioned in the Bible, but someone ending their own life that we know of happened 7 times. King Saul fell upon his sword. Then his armor bearer also did the same thing when he saw that Saul was dead. Abimelech hung himself. Samson pulled down the temple to the Philistine gods, I don't remember the name, and killed himself and a bunch of the Philistines. And some people, by the way, do not see that as a suicide, but as a military strategy. He was getting a lot of the enemy. Ahithophel in 2 Samuel and Zimri in 1 Kings. And honestly, I forgot to look up what they did, but I looked up, they were suicidal. And then, of course, Judas, who betrayed Jesus for 20 pieces of silver. So 20 or 30. I think it was 20. However many pieces of silver was not enough. And he ended up hanging himself. So those are the ones that we know of in the Bible who did commit suicide. God does not want us to take our own lives because he has a plan for each of us. In the Bible, King David told God in Psalms 13:15, my future is in your hands. Okay, in God's hands, not in our hands. One of my favorite verses is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. That does not sound like permission to commit suicide. God is always asking us to trust him with our future and with our lives. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Depending on our own understanding, that's what makes people justify suicide, even for Christians. I'm just too much of a burden for them. They'll be better off without me. That is our own understanding. That is not God's plan. When things seem hopeless, and at times they will, look to God. Put your faith in him. Ask him for strength, for help, for guidance. So The life that God has given each of us is a gift. It does not always seem that way. Believe me, I get that. And it may be difficult to know which road to take and which decision to make. But we don't have to do it, and we shouldn't try to do it under our own wisdom. Read your Bible, pray, seek counsel from fellow believers, and God will speak to you through that and give you some direction. We know that God wants us to live for Him. The Bible says that our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, and we should honor God with our bodies. Killing ourselves is not honoring God with our bodies. God plans for us to live and to seek His will. The only things we should be putting to death are our own stubbornness, pride, selfishness, anger. Those are the things that we need to kill off and do that so that we can be transformed into the way God wants us to be. And Matthew 24:13 says, the one who endures to the end will be saved. Sometimes it does feel like you are hanging on by your fingertips. I get that. But it is never God's will for us to kill ourselves. It just isn't, y'all. It's clear that God wants us to live our lives fully and on His terms. He doesn't want us to harm ourselves or others. God's word is very clear on the fact that life is sacred. And there's several scriptures I'm going to give you on that. Exodus 20:13, you shall not murder. And that includes yourself. Ephesians 5:29, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. This is a good one for people who are just feeling really overwhelmed. Matthew 11:28, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Love that verse. And this is such a good one for anyone who may be feeling suicidal. This is Psalms 34:18 and 19. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. I love that. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Oh, that is so good. Such a good promise to cling to. And one more, Isaiah 41:10, which is like one of my favorite verses of all times. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. This is one of the verses that I listen to every morning on my phone. I have it recorded, and I listen to several verses, affirmations, all that stuff every morning. So, in conclusion, sometimes God allows us to go through tough times to teach us some things that we really need to know and that you can't learn any other way. It is tempting to try to take a shortcut out of the situation. I've been there many times. Been like, Lord, I feel like I've learned everything I need to in this situation. Can we be done? Is it over? Can I move on? And most of the time when I say that, I'm jumping the gun, and He will say, no, you're not finished. Stay right there. I'm with you. Stay right there. Not what I want to hear, but what I need to do. So at times, the best thing that we can do is stay right where we are and just keep asking for God's help to get through it. And I promise He will provide it. Okay. So, fun fact about Waco, Texas. I did a search just now, recently, and I found, and I stopped after this point, about 25 to 30 animal shelters in the Central Texas area. Y'all, if you're thinking of getting a dog or a cat especially, go to a shelter. Go adopt one. Don't buy a fancy breed from a pet store because you don't even know where those are coming from. Save a life. I adopted little Farley about a week and a half ago, sweetest little dog. And it's changed my life. My other dog, Chewy, is so much happier to have a friend. Farley is starting to warm up to us. He's getting more comfortable. It just makes a big difference. I am a huge animal lover, and I just really encourage you. Go support your animal shelters. They do such a good job. Okay, closing. Along with this podcast and Waco Hypnosis Center, I'm available for public speaking. If you're interested in having me for an event, you can contact me through my website at www.drmelissarich.com, or you can email me at info@drmelissarich.com. If y'all like this podcast, I would love for you to do any of the following. Give me an awesome review because, hey, it was an awesome podcast. 5 stars would be amazing. Follow the podcast. Share the episode. All of those would be great. I'm working on building up my audience, and I would love y'all's help to do that. So that is it for this week. I really hope this was helpful. Again, I know this was not the most fun, cheery topic, but unfortunately, I really do believe it's a very timely one. So next week will be a happier topic. So please come back, and everybody have a good week. Thanks, y'all. Bye.